In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace this power steering line in this Nissan Altima. It's located behind the engine, leading to the power steering pump and also to the steering rack underneath. Now we're going to be taking off our wheel. I'm going to use a 21mm socket. Make sure you hold the wheel on when you get the last one. Make sure you remember where you put your lug nuts. All right, so you're going to want to get a trim tool and remove these plastic fasteners for the wheel well. Just slide it under there, or you can pry it here if it wants to cooperate, but sometimes they just pop right out. Once you do that, you can just go ahead and pull that down. All right, first thing you're going to want to do is disconnect the connector from the power steering sensor. I'm going to push in the tab and pull. It shouldn't come off, just set it aside. So you're going to go behind the front wheel with your 24mm socket. And you're going to reach for the bolt for the line. Once you get on there, you're going to try to crack it loose. All right, so I have my wrench on there and another wrench behind it. It's really snug. Just be careful when you are trying to crack that loose, you don't hit this wire here. Now that I've cracked that loose, I'm going to go in with my ratchet. So once this line comes off, you will get some leaking. So you want to have your plug ready. And your drip pan ready as well. All right, reaching through here, I can see my line and I'm going to attempt to crack it loose. Very rusty. Okay, cracked it loose. First wrench I used was a line wrench, and it's shaped like this, and it's a 14mm. Now that it's loose, I'm going to use my other wrench. It's easier. All right, I'm noticing that the line is frozen to the fitting. This should move independently from the line, but because of the rust, it's stuck. I did spray it down with penetrating oil earlier, and it still is stuck. So what I want you to do is to check your new line up against your old line, and if it looks exactly the same, you can make your life easier, tech tip, and cut this line around here because you know you're replacing the line. And then you can just take this out. So now that we've begun cutting this line, you can start to see the fluid drop out, and you want to make sure that you put a pan underneath to catch the fluid. You're going to go ahead and keep turning your cutting tool till it's completely cut. All right, once you have the cutter get mostly through the line, you can use your wrench and loosen the fitting out of the rack, and it will just break off. And we are able to get the other end out. All right. So what we're going to go after now, as you can see on the new bracket, there is 2 areas where there's bolts, and that is the only thing that holds this whole unit on. This is where the line is that we just cut. I'm going to be using a 10 millimeter long socket with a swivel on my power tool ratchet. I crack it loose first. I also want to note that I added some penetrating oil on the back side of the bolt, knowing that it's super rusty. I can take out these bolts. I'm going to need these for installation, so I'm going to put them off to the side. I'm going to push these tabs in and push this plastic holder out. There we go. A little gentle persuasion goes a long way. All right, so I'm going to reach behind, directly behind the engine, to this bracket where the power steering hose is attached and secured. I'll show it to you on the new part. And I'm going to take my 10 millimeter ratchet wrench, and I'm going to put the wrench on. And crack it loose. And then I'm going to go to the other bolt. Unfortunately, you have to go more by feel than by seeing. So once you have cracked loose the bolts, you can then loosen them by hand. Set your bolt aside. And the power steering line should fall down, where you can then grab it and pull it out of the wheel well. All right, so now you can take your line out from the wheel well. There you go. All right, so this is the old hose, obviously. We are going to be removing this power steering sensor, and we are going to be reusing this bolt. On this bolt, there are 2 washers. Your new line should come with them. You're not going to reuse the ones that were already in there. So you're going to take those off. And the one is on the other side. So 1 washer on, put it on, 1 washer on after you put it in. And then you're taking this sensor out and putting it in the new line. I do recommend draining the line before you start doing anything to it, because you don't need all that extra fluid all over the place. All right, so now I have both power steering lines in a vise just to help hold it still. Okay, 27 millimeter. It looks good. I don't see any issues with it. No tears. And place it back in to the other brand new power steering line. And it's easier to do this, obviously, when the line is out of the vehicle. I'm just going to snug this down. I'm going to clean it off. Use a little brake clean. Okay, once this line is fed through where it belongs, there's going to be a package of washers and an O-ring in there. The O-ring goes here. And like I said, the washers go on either side of the bolt through this fitting. We're not going to do that till the line is in the car though. All right, so now you're going to feed the line through the same way you took it out. I would aim the line part towards the back of the car so you can bypass those wires. And once you get it in somewhat, you're going to lift the vehicle. All right, so now that you've lined up your metal line, you are going to feed the flexible part of the line up towards the back of the engine. Keep in mind that your sensor is on the other end of this line and you don't want to damage it. So one hand is under and the other hand is through the wheel well. As you're positioning your line back in place, there is one line that you need to get the bracket over before you start bolting it down. Again, you're going to need some patience while doing this. So don't force it. It should find its way where it belongs eventually, like that. So now you're going to put this plastic piece back inside the square notch in the bracket. And you're just going to push it down. You want to make sure that the pieces that you pinched are past the square, so it's in there. All right, so now I'm going to take my O-ring and I'm going to put it back. I'm going to put it on the front of the line. Definitely want to do this before you tighten anything down. Once that's on, you can feed it into where the line goes. And just get it started a little bit. Don't tighten it down because you want a little bit of wiggle room when dealing with lines. But definitely get it started. And as you shake the line, it's easier for the threads to find their way. All right, now that your line is started, you can make sure that your bolt holes line up with the bracket. And you want to just check to see where your other end of the line is. Make sure that's ready to go up where you found it. Okay, so now is the time you put one washer on. You're going to feed it through the line. Now I'm going to make sure I have my other washer on the other end. And I'm going to place the line in the bracket. There is a little nub on the end of the line that you're supposed to fit into the bracket right there. All right, so once you have that started, you can go ahead and get your 24mm socket and ratchet, and now you can snug it down. Be careful you do not hit that sensor. All right, that's nice and tight. And while we're here, we're going to plug in the sensor. Just make sure it's not covered in power steering fluid. You can use a rag, wipe it down. I already cleaned it with some brake clean earlier. And we're going to take it and we are going to push it on until you hear the click. So you're going to line up the black bracket and you're going to put the bolt in. Hand tighten it. Don't tighten it all the way, and then put your other bolt in on the other side. Once you get both bolts in, you can tighten them down with your fingers as much as possible, and then use that ratchet wrench again, or a regular wrench, 10mm, to tighten it, snug it up. Right. Then you just want to snug up this other one. And good. Now we're going to go back to underneath the car and we're going to tighten up the line inside the rack. So you want to make sure your bracket is all lined up and you're going to Start your bolts by hand. You also want to make sure this bracket for the new line is on this side, going towards the back, not on the other side, because the threads are on the bracket that's attached to the car. Once you got that started by hand, you can go ahead and tighten it down. So now we've already started this line, so you're not going to have to fight with it to get it started. And we're just going to tighten it down. We already have our O-ring on there. Once you get it snug, I want you to get your line wrench and use that for the last part of the tightening. All right, so now you just want to clean up with maybe some parts cleaner, brake clean, any residual power steering fluid. So now you're going to put your plastic cover back inside your wheel well. So make sure you line up your holes. So you want to pull the center out, push the plastic in, and then push the tab in. Now you can put on your wheel. You're going to put your lug nuts on, finger tight. Make sure you don't cross thread. Snug them up a little bit. You are going to be torquing these. You're going to tighten them in a star-like pattern, just like you do with the torque. That way it seats nicely on the wheel. Now it's time to torque your wheel at 83 foot-pounds. You're going to do a star pattern while doing it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I always check one more time. So now we're ready to fill your power steering reservoir. You're going to use ATF or Dextron 6 is per recommendation of the manufacturer. You can also refer to your owner's manual. You're going to want to fill it up to the middle line, and then you're going to want to start it. Now that you've filled it, you're going to take your funnel out, put your cap back on, and you are going to make sure the front of the car is lifted up, wheels off the ground. You're going to get in the car and you're going to go back and forth about 20 times, lock to lock. Then you're going to check your fluid again and make sure you fill it to the max line. Then we're going to start the car and go back and forth about 5 times, and you should be good.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.